Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am Tom, and I am so excited to be here with you.
And I am Ria. Hello, everyone. It is such a beautiful day to learn something new, isn't it, Tom?
It really is, Ria. Today we have a topic that I think is going to touch the hearts of so many of our listeners. It is something we have all struggled with, honestly. It's about that moment when you want to say something in English, but your brain just freezes.
Oh, I know that feeling so well. It's like having a computer inside your head that is just buffering. You have the thought in your native language, but the English words are stuck somewhere in traffic.
Exactly. That traffic jam in your brain is what we want to clear up today. We're going to talk about how to train your brain to actually think in English so you can speak fluently without translating everything in your head first.
That sounds like a dream come true for so many learners. I remember when I first started learning, I would construct these perfect, complex sentences in my own language, and then I would try to translate them word for word. By the time I was ready to speak, the conversation had already moved on. It was so frustrating.
I can imagine. And it's not just frustrating, it's exhausting, right? It takes so much mental energy to constantly switch back and forth between two languages. It's like trying to run a marathon while carrying a heavy backpack. You can do it, but you're going to get tired very quickly.
That is such a good way to describe it. So, Tom, why do we do that? Why is our default setting to translate instead of just thinking in the new language?
Well, it's natural. Your brain is a survival machine. It wants to use the tools it already has masterfully. Your native language is a superhighway that is already built. English is like a dirt path you're just starting to clear. So when you're under pressure to speak, your brain instinctively jumps onto the superhighway because it feels safer.
That makes so much sense. It's a safety mechanism. We're afraid of making mistakes, so we cling to what we know. But how do we start building that English superhighway? How do we pave that road?
It starts with changing your relationship with the world around you. You have to stop looking at objects and concepts through the lens of your native language. You have to start labeling your reality directly in English.
Labeling your reality. That sounds deep. Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say you're sitting at your desk right now. If you look at a pen, your brain instantly screams the word for pen in your native language. You have to consciously interrupt that. You have to look at it and force your brain to think pen. Not the translation of pen, but just the object and the English word simultaneously.
So it's about direct association, connecting the image directly to the English word, skipping the middleman.
Precisely. The middleman is what slows you down. We need to fire the middleman.
I love that. You are fired, middleman. But Tom, doing that for every single object seems overwhelming. Where do we even start?
You start small. You start with the mundane things. When you wake up in the morning, look at your toothbrush. Say toothbrush in your head. Look at the mirror. Think mirror. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but you're building neural pathways. You're telling your brain that English is a valid way to identify the world.
It reminds me of how babies learn. They don't translate. They see a ball, their parent says ball, and they connect the two. They don't have another language to filter it through.
Exactly. We're trying to replicate that organic process, but as adults, we have to be more intentional about it because we have to fight against the habit of translating.
I have tried this a little bit, and I have to admit, sometimes I feel a bit silly walking around my house naming furniture in my head.
It's totally normal to feel silly. But remember, this conversation is happening inside your mind. No one can hear you. It's your private training ground. And the more you do it with simple nouns, the easier it becomes to do it with actions.
Actions? You mean verbs?
Yes. Once you're comfortable naming objects, you start narrating your life. This is the next level. Instead of just thinking coffee, you think, I am making coffee. I am pouring the water. The water is hot.
Oh, I see. So you become the narrator of your own documentary.
That is a brilliant way to put it. You are the star and the narrator. Ria is opening the door. Ria is walking to the car.
I like that. It makes life feel a bit more cinematic. But Tom, what happens when we get stuck? What if I'm narrating my day and I realize I don't know the word for shoelace or kettle?
That is actually a golden moment. That moment of stuckness is where the real learning happens. Because now you have a gap, you have a need. When you go and look up that word, you will remember it much better because you needed it in a real-life context.
That is true. It is not just a random word on a vocabulary list anymore. It is the word I needed to finish my story. It has emotional weight now.
Exactly. And speaking of emotional weight, I think we have reached a good point to review some of the concepts we just used. We have used some interesting words in the last few minutes.
We certainly have. Let's take a look at them.
All right, so looking back at our conversation, I think the three hardest or most interesting words we used were instinctively, mundane, and intentional.
Those are great choices. Instinctively means doing something naturally, without thinking, acting on impulse. Like when Tom said, our brains instinctively jump to our native language.
Right. And mundane refers to things that are ordinary, dull, or lacking excitement, like everyday household objects.
And finally, intentional. This means doing something on purpose with a plan. We have to be intentional about thinking in English.
Perfect definitions. Now, Ria, you had a question for our listeners.
Yes, I do. Based on what we just discussed, here is my question for you. What are 3 mundane objects in the room with you right now that you can name in English instantly? Don't translate them, just look and name. Think about it.
That is a great challenge. I'm looking around my studio right now doing exactly that. Microphone, table, glass.
See? It works. Okay, let's get back to the conversation. We were talking about narrating our lives. I want to dig deeper into the fear aspect, Tom.
The fear. Yes, that is the biggest barrier, isn't it?
It is. Even if I can talk to myself in my head, the moment I have to open my mouth and speak to a real person, the panic sets in. The thinking process shuts down and I just want to run away. How do we bridge the gap between thinking in English alone and speaking to others?
That is the million-dollar question. The transition from internal monologue to external dialogue is where the pressure comes in. The pressure comes from the fear of judgment. We think, if I speak and I make a mistake, they will think I'm not smart.
Oh, I have felt that so many times. I worry that my personality won't shine through because my English is limited. I feel like a less interesting version of myself.
That is such a heartbreaking feeling, but it's so common. Listen, you have to realize that most people are not judging your grammar. They are listening to connect with you. They want to know what you think, not how perfectly you conjugate a verb.
I need to remind myself of that every day. Connection over perfection.
Exactly. But to practically help with this, you need to practice low-stakes speaking.
Low-stakes speaking? What does that mean?
It means speaking in situations where the consequences of making a mistake are zero. For example, talking to your pet. Your dog does not care about your prepositions.
My cat definitely judges me, but probably not for my grammar.
Cats judge everyone for everything. But seriously, talking to pets or even recording voice notes for yourself on your phone, this is a powerful technique.
Recording yourself? Oh, I hate the sound of my own voice.
Everyone does it first, but here's why it works. When you record yourself speaking your thoughts, just rambling about your day for 1 minute, you're forcing your brain to organize thoughts into speech without a partner staring at you. Then you can listen back.
And when I listen back, I suppose I can hear where I hesitated?
Yes, you can hear where you paused to translate, you can hear where you struggled, and you can evaluate it calmly. You can say, oh, next time I should say it this way. It's a safe space to fail.
I like the idea of a safe space to fail, because in the real world, failure feels scary. But on a voice note, I can just delete it if it's terrible.
Precisely. And you know, another technique to stop translating is to stop obsessing over specific words.
What do you mean? If I don't know the word, I can't speak.
Not true. This is a huge trap. In our native language, if we forget a specific word, we talk around it, we describe it, we use synonyms. But in English, learners often freeze and hunt for that one specific word.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I freeze because I'm looking for the perfect translation of the word I'm thinking of in my language.
Right, but you don't need the perfect word. You need to communicate the idea. If you forget the word for umbrella, don't stand there silently. Say, the thing you hold over your head when it rains.
That is actually quite freeing. It is like a game of charades, but with words, describing the thing instead of naming it.
Yes, it is called circumlocution. It keeps the flow of conversation going. It keeps your brain in English mode. The moment you stop to search your mental dictionary for a direct translation, you have broken the flow. You have switched back to your native operating system.
Circumlocution. That sounds like a fancy word for talking around it, but it is such a survival skill. It keeps you in the game.
It really is. And the more you do it, the more confident you become. You realize, hey, even if I don't know every word, I can still make myself understood. That builds massive confidence.
Confidence is key. You know, Tom, another thing that helps me think in English is changing the content I consume.
Tell me more about that.
Well, I used to watch movies with subtitles in my language. I was reading my language while hearing English. My brain was constantly translating.
That is a very common habit. It feels like learning, but often it is just reading practice in your own language.
Exactly. So I switched to English subtitles and eventually no subtitles. But what really helped was listening to things that were slightly easier than my level.
Ah, comprehensible input. This is huge. If you listen to something too hard, your brain panics and tries to translate to make sense of it.
Yes, if it's too fast or too complex, I check out. But if I listen to a podcast, like this one, hopefully, where the pace is steady and the words are clear, I find myself just nodding along and understanding the meaning without translating the words.
That is the flow state. When the difficulty matches your ability just right, you stop analyzing the language and start enjoying the content. That's when thinking in English happens naturally. You're absorbed in the story.
Absorbed in the story. I love that feeling. It's like you forget you're using a foreign language. You're just communicating.
And that brings up an interesting point about emotion. We remember things that make us feel something. If you're just memorizing lists of vegetables, your brain is bored. It will translate because it has no emotional connection to the word carrot.
Poor carrots. Always the example of boring vocabulary.
Sorry, carrots. But if you're talking about something you're passionate about, let's say cooking or football or music, your desire to express that passion will override the translation mechanism. You want to get the feeling out so badly that your brain grabs the nearest English word.
So we should talk to ourselves about things we love?
Absolutely. Argue with yourself about your favorite movie. Rant about a bad day. Expressing emotion in English is the ultimate test of thinking in English. If you can get angry in English, you are fluent.
If you can get angry in English, you are fluent. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. It's true, though. Cursing or expressing shock usually comes out in our native language first because it's so deep in our brain.
It is the reptilian brain, but you can retrain it. It just takes immersion. And immersion doesn't mean living in New York or London.
I'm glad you said that because so many of our listeners might think, well, I don't live in an English-speaking country, so I can't do this.
That is a myth. Immersion is a choice you make, not a place you live. You can create an English bubble in your bedroom. Change your phone language. Watch English YouTube. Talk to yourself in English.
Create your own bubble. I like that. You don't need a plane ticket. You just need to change your environment.
Speaking of environment and making changes, let's pause for a moment. We have covered some really significant ground in the last few minutes.
We have. I feel like my brain is already working a little differently. Let's look at the vocabulary from this segment.
Okay, so looking back at the last segment, the three words that stood out to me as challenging or important are circumlocution, comprehensible, and immersion.
Circumlocution. That's a mouthful. It means using many words where fewer would do, mostly in a deliberate attempt to be vague or evasive, or in our case, to explain a word you don't know.
Right. Then we had comprehensible. This means able to be understood, intelligible, like input that you can grasp without struggling too much.
And immersion. This is the action of immersing someone or something in a liquid, but in language learning, it means deep mental involvement, surrounding yourself completely with the language.
Excellent. Now, Ria, what is the question for this block?
My question is about that talking around technique. I want our listeners to think about this. Imagine you want to buy a stapler, but you don't know the word. How would you describe it using simple words you already know? Try to describe a stapler without saying stapler.
Oh, that is a tricky one. The machine that joins papers together with a small metal piece.
See? I understood exactly what you meant. No translation needed.
It works. It really works. Now, I want to pivot slightly to the physical aspect of speaking. Thinking is mental, but speaking is physical.
That is true. Your mouth has to move differently for English than it does for Spanish or Hindi or Japanese.
Exactly. Sometimes we translate because our mouth muscles are lazy. They want to move in the familiar native patterns. When we can't physically make the English sound easily, our brain retreats to the native word.
So, training your tongue is part of training your brain.
They are connected. If you practice pronunciation, really exaggerating the sounds, you build muscle memory. When your mouth knows exactly what to do, your brain doesn't need to hesitate. The hesitation is often where the translation sneaks in.
I never thought about it that way. Hesitation is the enemy. It is the crack in the door where the native language tries to get back in.
Yes, and one way to fix this is shadowing.
Shadowing. I've heard of this. This is where you listen to audio and repeat it exactly as you hear it, almost at the same time.
Yes, you don't wait for the sentence to finish. You follow right behind the speaker like a shadow. You mimic their speed, their emotion, their pauses.
That sounds intense. It's like karaoke, but for conversation.
It is intense, but here's why it helps you think in English. You're speaking so fast that you don't have time to translate. You're forcing your brain to process the English sound and output it instantly. It bypasses the translation center of the brain.
That's a really practical tip. So if I shadowed this podcast, for example, I would try to speak along with you as you're speaking.
Exactly. It might feel chaotic at first, but it forces you into that English rhythm. It teaches your brain the melody of the language.
The melody. English does have a melody. The ups and downs, the stress.
It does. And when you learn the melody, you stop thinking in individual words and start thinking in chunks, phrases. How are you doing becomes one sound, not four words.
How are you doing? One sound block. That makes it so much faster to process.
And that's the secret to thinking in English. You stop assembling sentences like Lego bricks, one by one. You start throwing down whole pre-built walls.
I love that visualization. Lego bricks versus pre-built walls. It's about efficiency.
Efficiency is key. You know, we have talked a lot about techniques today. Labeling, narrating, self-talk, circumlocution, shadowing. It feels like a lot.
It can feel like a lot, and I think some listeners might be feeling a bit overwhelmed, thinking, I have to do all of this?
And that's the last thing we want. You don't have to do it all at once. The goal isn't to be perfect tomorrow. The goal is to reduce the percentage of time you spend translating.
Right. If today you translate 90% of your thoughts, try to get it down to 80% next week.
Exactly. Progress, not perfection. And be kind to yourself. Some days your brain will be tired and it will refuse to think in English. That's okay.
I have those days. Days where English just looks like alien symbols to me. I just accept it and try again the next day.
That resilience is what makes a successful learner. It's not about talent, it's about not quitting.
Tom, I'm thinking about the emotional side again. I think one of the best ways to think in English is to connect with people, real people.
I couldn't agree more. When you have a friend who only speaks English, you're forced to adapt.
And the relationship becomes the motivation. You're not learning English to pass a test. You're learning English because you want to tell your friend a joke or share a secret.
That's the ultimate hack, necessity. When you need the language to maintain a bond, your brain works overtime to make it happen. It sheds the translation layer because it's too slow for the relationship.
So find a friend, find a community, even if it's online.
Yes, don't be a lonely island learner. Language is for connection. Use it to connect.
This has been such an inspiring conversation, Tom. I feel motivated to go narrate my lunch preparation after this.
I hope you do. I am slicing the bread. I am spreading the butter.
The butter is hard. I am tearing the bread.
The tragedy of cold butter. But yes, that is exactly it. Before we wrap up this episode, let's do one final check on our vocabulary. We had some good ones in this last stretch.
We did. Let's review the last 3 heavy hitters.
Okay, for this final section, I've chosen resilience, chaotic, and efficiency.
Great words. Resilience. This is one of my favorites. It is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness. Like when you have a bad English day, but you keep going.
Chaotic. This describes a state of complete confusion and disorder, like how shadowing feels when you first try it.
And efficiency. Achieving maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort or expense, like using phrases instead of individual words.
And Ria, what is your final question for our listeners today?
My final question is a personal commitment. I want you to ask yourself, what is one specific time of day, maybe while brushing your teeth or driving to work, that I can commit to thinking only in English for just 5 minutes? Pick that time and stick to it.
That is a perfect place to start. Just 5 minutes. You can build the world from there.
Tom, thank you for all these insights. It really helps to break it down.
Thank you, Ria, and thank you to everyone listening. We know this journey is hard. We know it can feel lonely, but you are making progress every time you press play.
Absolutely. Keep talking to yourself, keep labeling your world, keep making mistakes. It is all part of the process.
We believe in you. You've got this. Until next time, keep finding your voice.
Goodbye, everyone. Keep practicing.
Bye.